Hello, in this video I'm going to create a simple Spring application with REST controllers and token-based authentication together with HttpBasic. I was looking on the internet trying to find a video tutorial explaining how you can set up such authentication, but I couldn't find a good one, so as usual I decided to try and make one myself. I already have one sample application with token-based security, so before we begin building the new one, let me just show you what exactly we're going to build throughout this tutorial. So this is the security controller, and those are all the actions inside our small application. So the first one is authorized, where we're going to initially log in. The other one is unknown, which you can only access if you're not logged in. The other one is only accessible if you are logged in, and the other one is only accessible if you are admin. That's an exception handler. We're going to receive it every time we are not logged in or we don't have given permission. And also there are two users currently inside the application. Let me show you those users. I basically hard-coded them. So the first one is admin, the second one is user, and the password for both is password. So with that being said, let me just go to the front-end sort of part. We have two functions. The one is call, where we can enter the token if you want, enter the URL, and we'll get a response. And the other one is authorize, so that we can get a token. Okay, so let's hit reload on that, and let's say first call. So like that, token null token. Let's say unknown, and we're going to get you are unknown, which is correct here. Okay, so let's call again with no token. Let's try logged. You're not allowed to visit this page. Okay, so if I say authorize like that, and I say user with password, we're getting this access token here. Sorry. And now if I call again, paste the token here, and choose logged again, we should see you are logged. So yeah, this is what we're going to do. Basically, this is the final project. So that's what we're aiming to achieve in this video. Also, I'll have this code uploaded to GitHub, so you have access to it as well. And basically, we're going to start creating the project from scratch. So if you don't want to see the details, like for example creating the entities and stuff like that, you can skip to the part where I start implementing the security, which is which will be near the end of the video. So basically, the whole idea is those two filters here that we have created, and the security configuration. This is basically the main part. The rest of the things are going to be they're going to be essential to the project. So we're going to start from there, and then we're going to go here. So if you don't want to wait, just keep it, no problem. So with that being said, let's start creating the project. Okay, so new project, Spring Initializer, Java 11. By the way, this should work on Java 8, but that's my preferred SDK for now. Okay, so come example, okay, demo project for Spring security token. Okay, we'll need DevTools, maybe Spring Web, no templating engines, Spring Security, Spring Data, MySQL. I think that's pretty much it. So let's go forward. Set my folder, that window. Okay, so I guess first we're going to set some configuration things, and then we're going to proceed with creating services and entities and stuff like that. Alright, so let's start with the application.properties file. Okay, so I'm not gonna lie, I don't remember all of those, so I'm just going to copy them like that, and I'm just going to quickly explain what each one of those does. So server.port, I think it's easy, that's a port that the server is running on. Those here are the connection string, username and password for MySQL. That is for the SQL dialect. This is for the type of database strategy, in our case update. And then I'm just going to uncomment this for actually showing the SQL queries in the console. Alright, so as far as this one goes, you know, when some error occurs in Spring, how you get redirected to / error. If you exclude this configuration, that means that no longer when you get an error you get redirected. So this is essential when you're actually building a REST application. So that's why we have this setting here. Okay, so moving on, let's go to our dependency list here and add two dependencies that we might need. That's Google's JSON and model mapper. We might need them, so I'll just add them here. Okay, so moving on, let's create a new folder called config, and let's create bin configuration like that, bin public model mapper, public JSON, and we're going to have to create one more bin public bcrypt password encoder. Still not sure if we're going to need that, but we might have to use it in some case. So let's just create a bin for it, and if we don't need it, it's not a big deal. Next, let's create here a little helper for us while we're running the server. Let's say private int port value, and let's get that value by saying server port. And here we can say public void on app started, and let's print like that. This port. So we're going to annotate this with event listener, application ready event. So this is basically going to fire, is going to print this on the console so we can easily click on it. Don't know how useful, but we'll have it anyway. One more thing that I just remembered, we shouldn't name this database like that. We should name it like that, since I currently have another one. So For me specifically, I'm going to name my database Spring Token only, or maybe Spring Tokens, like that. Okay, so let's start and see if we have broken something. Okay, so you can see that we have get the link here. Okay, so let me just quickly check if we have created our database. Refresh. So doesn't seem like created. Maybe this is because we haven't actually created any entities in our database, so that should be okay. So moving on, now that we have the basic configuration, let's go ahead and create our entities that we're going to use. So let's just create a few folders first, like to structure the code a little bit. So users, we're going to have also security, like that, and we're going to have constants as well. Okay, well, not user but users. Okay, so users is going to have entities, and let's start with the role. So entity table roles. Like that. Perfect role. And let's create the getters and setters. I'm pressing Alt and Insert. For that, that's an ID. Generated file. Like so. Okay, so the row is going to be also unique, so unique true, and no, both false. And row is going to implement granted authority. Granted authority has one method, get authority. I'll paste it here. Let's make it transient. Return this row. Okay, so row is pretty much ready. Let's create another package repositories, and let's create that JPA repository for rows. That extends JPA repository of row and wonk as an ID. Repository. We're going to have here one method row find row by row, basically string row, like that. Okay. Yeah, so now let's create the user entity, also entity, also table name users, and I'm just going to copy that ID because it's the same. Okay. Also we have string username, private string password. username. So user is going to implement granted user details. So get authorities, we're going to come to this as well, but is enabled, return true, return true, return true to all those, return this username. You can also say set username right here, get password, return this password, set password below that, and also we can actually make those transient because we don't have them mapped anywhere, so like that. Okay, so get password, set password, you can say here not yet, but get ID, set ID. So about the authorities, let's say private list of granted authority, like that. So this is many to many, like that. Fetch eager, join table, join columns, join column. Like so. Version column. Okay, so I think we should have it mapped. Get authorities, return these authorities, and we're going to have set authorities as well. Let's see if there are any getters and setters that we need to add. No. So that means that we are ready with the user entity as well. Let's create the user repository. User and long, like that. We're going to have one method here as well, find user by username. String username. Okay. Now we're going to have one more entity, which is going to be the actual token that we're going to store in the database. So let's go to security, let's add entities, and let's add repositories. So AuthToken entity table. So instead of long this time we're going to have string ID, and I'm going to have something like the last access time, so we can see if the token is expired later on. So last access time, and we're going to have user like so. So public AuthToken, and we're going to have one pre-persist. So we're going to say this was access time equals local date time .now. Okay. So this is ID. This is com name past time. Now go false. This is many to 1. Join column. So we're referencing the ID of the user. Now, about the string ID, let me just check how it was the setting, how to configure it, and I'll come back. Okay, so I found how to configure it, so I can copy those three and I'll explain each one what does, but actually we have a little issue here that we don't find this generic generator annotation because we don't have actually Hibernate imported into our project. So let me just say Hibernate Maven. We have it, but we don't have it as a dependency, so we can't see. So I'll take that one. Now just paste it down here. So let's see now if we get it. Yeah, we get it. So basically we're generating UUID as a basically primary key. So generic generator just specifies which class is responsible for generating that key. Now let's create our getters and setters. Oh, sorry. Okay, so that should be it. Now let's create the repository. So AuthToken repository. This time string because our primary key is string. Now we're going to have one method here as well, a list of AuthToken find by user, like that. Okay, so with that being said, I think that our entities and their respective repositories should be fine. Let's build the application and see if we manage to map those into our database. Okay, so seems like we have managed to map them because I can see the walk of Hibernate, but let's just check out to be sure. Let's hit refresh on this one. So as you can see now we have Spring Tokens database, and yeah, it's empty for now, but we're going to take care of that. Actually, now that the next step is to create services for those three dependencies. Okay, so starting with services, let me just switch back to packages view, project view, like so. So users, let's create a new package, services, and let's create a new package for security as well. So let's start with the role service because it seems to be the easiest one. So interface role service. We're going to have one method like that, basically to seed the database. What else? This stuff. Row find all and row find. And here we're going to we have to create another class row type, like so. We're going to have two rows, row user, row admin. That's not the interface, it's a num, like so. So we're going to accept here a row type, like that. Okay, so let's create the implementation now. Okay, so initialize, let's check if this repository.count is more than 0, then just return, because we don't need to add to see the database in that case. If that is not the case, let's say row type dot values, and let's iterate those, and let's say row equals new row set row type dot name, and this repository save row, and finally this repository dot flush. Okay, so find by row type, let's say return this repository find row by row dot name, find all, this repository find all. So that's it for the row service. Let's go to user service. Which will extend user details service. We need that for Spring Security. And we're going to have one method seed, which is going to hardcode a bunch of users, so we can have something to work with without implementing a register and stuff like that. So let's go here, let's say user service implementation. Like that. Service. User repository. Okay, again, if this repository.count is more than 0, return. Otherwise, and let's now store that private final string default password. Let's just say password. And also we're going to require here private final bcrypt password encoder, like so. So if you remember, we created that in the Bing configuration here. Okay, so the first user is going to be called admin equals new user, admin set password. So let's just say final string password equals this password encoder, encode default password. So let's set the password, also admin set username, admin, and admin set authorities list of, and now we can say, oh, but we have to require it first, row service. So this row service find row type user, and also this row service find row type admin. So basically our admin will have those two rows, and now we can basically copy the same thing, but we can name this to user like that, and we don't need the admin row for it, we just need the user row like that. And now we can say this repository save admin, this repository save and flush user. So that's our seed method. Now as far as this goes, let's say user equals this repository find by username. So if user is different now, return the user, or else throw new username, not found exception. With user not found with username like that. Alright, so our user service also seems to be ready. So let's build and let's see if we have those values basically seeded in our database. Sorry, my mistake. We need to actually call seed first, so, and here we need to initialize it, so like that. Now it should work. Okay, so it seems like we have inserted something, but let's see in the database. Let's refresh. So rows, we have the two rows. Users, we have two users, and here we should have, for the first user, we should have two rows, and for second user one. So yeah, it's working properly. Now there's one more service left for us to create, and that's the authentication token service. Okay, so let's go to services and create that AuthToken service. So we're going to have one update AuthToken. So basically this will update the last access time. We'll have delete, like so. We're going to have boolean is token expired. We're going to have AuthToken create user. That's the logged in user, and now we're going to have AuthToken find by ID, string ID, and finally list of AuthToken find by user. So user. Okay, so let's go to to the implementation. Implements AuthToken service. Okay, so update, we're going to say token set was access time local date time dot now, and this repository dot save token. For delete, we're just going to say this repository delete token. Is token expired? Let's just leave that. Let's go first with the simpler ones. So create AuthToken equals new AuthToken, set user, logged in user, and now we can say this repository save and flush token and return the token. We didn't set the last access time because if you remember, we have one pre-persist method here that does that right before we create it. Okay, so find by ID, return this repository dot find by ID, or else no, because we receive optional. If we check up here, yeah, optional find by user, we just return this repository find by user, like so. Okay, so about the is token expired now. So let's say final local date time now equals local date time dot now, and let's say final date time was access time equals token get last access time. Okay, so now we have to return how was it now, chrono unit, I think, minutes between. So now and the was access time. So the difference, in order this to be called expired, should be actually more than, and now we're going to create a constant for that. So add constants, public final int, so max allowed inactive session in minutes equals, let's just set it 5 minutes. I mean, it should be more than that, but in our, just for testing purposes, let's set it to 5 minutes. So add constants, max allowed. So this is going to be expired if the difference is more than 5 minutes, basically. So yeah, that's the implementation of the token service. So now let's move, I guess, to implementing some security configurations. Alright, so now let's create the security configuration. So go to config and create security configuration. Configuration extends web MVC security, no, security. What was it? Here it is. Okay, so override configure like that, and let's go http dot course disable. This is for allowing other domains basically to access this one, so we should have it, I guess, disabled. So CSRF also disable. This is for every post request we need to pass one token. Since we are doing this REST, we are also disabling that. User detail service is going to be our user service, so private final user service. Wired, so this user service. HttpBasic. HttpBasic. Basically, this is how we're going to authenticate any site. Here we can say authentication entry point, and we can specify one. So it's expecting authentication entry point. We can do that right here. We can say models and basic authentication entry point. So this one is going to implement authentication entry point. Okay, so basically here what we need to do is we need to, based on that exception, we need to specify like an error or something like that. But in our case, we're just going to say that there was an error and probably the credentials are invalid. So in order to do that, let's just require JSON first. And we're not going to make that a component. We're going to manually create an instance of it, so I'm not annotating anything here. Okay, so since we actually disabled that configuration here, when an exception occurs, we're no longer actually having access to filters and any logic that might occur after that exception. We're just printing whatever came in. So that has some restrictions, and actually that reminds me, first let's just create one method here that I have made a note of. This is for course again. Basically we have to allow like that. Basically that says that all of those methods are supported, and basically this will be returned on every route since we don't have any restrictions. So we need to have that method. And also I made a copy of a few things. Now, as I was saying, if we have an exception, we're not continuing any of the flow. So in that case, we manually have to say servlet response. So like that. We manually have to set those here so that we can continue having correct responses even if we have an error. So what else we need to have here? We can say set status, so HTTP servlet response, not forbidden but unauthorized, maybe like that. And also response alt header content type. like that. What else? Response get writer print like that, and inside that print we can say this is on to JSON, and we can now say, because JSON will convert any map into like a JSON file, we can make use of that and say new hash map of string and string like that. So we can put here, and I wanna extract this into a constant, so public static final string response message key equals message, so it's more convenient. Let's put it here. Okay, so I statically imported it by pressing Alt and Enter, and say invalid credentials, like so. Okay, so that should be it for our basic authentication entry point. Now let's go here and let's put it, so new basic, and make sure we choose our implementation, so private final JSON, and let's pass JSON here, since we are manually creating instance. Okay, so I guess now let's create a controller so we can test that a bit easier. So security, create new package, controllers, let's call it security controller, REST controller, and also request mapping produces application JSON, so we don't have to manually type it every time. Okay, so the first one is get mapping of unknown, so public map string object unknown action, so return new hash map. Let's put a constants response message key. Let me just statically import that as well here. You are unknown. Okay, so this is going to be pre-authorized. Pre-authorized with is anonymous. And also that reminds me, let's go to security configuration here, and let's say enable web security, and also enable global method security, like that. Pre-post enabled, true. So we can have that pre and post enabled on in our controller. So let's copy that like 2 times, I guess. This one is going to be walked. So walked action is fully let's see, is fully authenticated. You are walked, and also that is here admin, so has authority role admin. If you remember, that's the admin role name that we created. So admin action, you are admin. Alright. That's fine. I think now let's try to build this and see if it works. Okay, so it built successfully. Now let me open this WebStorm here and let's create a new function. Let's say, or no, sorry, let's do it with Postman. I guess it will be a little easier. So HTTP 8000. Let's try with unknown first. So you are unknown. Let's try with walked. No, because we are unauthorized. Okay, so that makes sense as well. Now let's see, did we get any exception? No. Okay. Now let's try with basic authentication. So user password. Let me show the password here. So you are walked, but if you try to go to admin, what will happen? Preview. So we're getting forbidden. Now we can fix this by saying exception handler access denied exception. So public map of string and let's just call the error for now. Return new hash map. Put response like that. You are not allowed to see this page. Okay, so let's build it quickly. Alright, so you're not allowed to see this page. Okay, and if I authenticate with admin, you are admin. So yeah, also now I shouldn't be able to access unknown with those parameters. Yeah. Alright, so basic authentication is working now. If you made it to that part, that's pretty much those essential things that we need to have in order to set up the pre-requirements for our token-based authentication. So from now on, what we're focusing on is the actual thing, which is setting those few filters and few other configurations in order to make the token work. Just before we begin, I want to actually have something like a way to show you the order of the filters, so it's more easier to understand. So let's do that by saying private filter filter chain, and this is going to be auto-wired and qualifier Spring. Am I going to get autocomplete? Sorry. Spring security. I think it should be like that. Or if it's not, I'll just check in a moment. So about the method, now I've just made a copy of that here. Let me just copy it and paste it around here. let me just rename that to Spring Security Filter Chain. Actually, yeah. Okay, so what will this thing do is it's going to get the order of the filters that we have in our application, and it's going to print them so we can easily see which filter is at which position. So let's quickly restart the server and let's see if this qualifier will work, or I'll have to find the real name. Apparently not. Okay, I'll just quickly find the proper name and I'll be back. I think I just found the error. We shouldn't import that filter, but instead we should import Java X servlet filter. Okay, so yeah, now it's gone. Let's run it and let's see what we get as a result in a console. Okay, so now you can see the order of the servlets starting from the highest order. I mean, that's the filter that is going to be executed first, and that's the last one. So you can see that we have this basic authentication filter, and basically what we need to do here is we need to paste our two custom filters before that one, so we can sort of if we get the token, we can set our security in a custom way instead of relying on that filter. Okay, so let's proceed in creating those two filters. Alright, let's start with the one that generates our token first. So let's create a new package. Let's call this filters. And let's call this basic token. Like that. This one is going to extend the basic authentication filter. We need to override this constructor, and also now we have to say on successful authentication. So basically basic authentication filter, if you remember, actually here it is. So we already have one filter, but we need our custom one so we can set a token based on the user that has walked in. So now let's remove that one. We don't need this. And let's say first let's get the user that has walked in. So user equals out result get principal. Okay, so now that depends on what you want to do, but let's say in this case, if we want to log in someone, we're going to remove all of his sessions that he has maybe on other places. So that's not really required, but let's do it. So actually first I need to import here private final AuthToken service. So we're also not going to create an instance of this interceptor, we're going to create it manually, not by service. So this token service find by user user for each, and then this token service dot delete, basically deleting every previous token. So AuthToken new token equals this token service create, and we pass the logged in user, and now we have the new token, and basically the ID of that token is the actual token. So we're going to set it in our session for now. So request get session set attribute, and let's create a constant for that. App constants. Let's create public static final string out token name equals out token. Okay. Paste that, and also static import while pressing Alt and Enter, and say new token.get ID. So that should be it for this interceptor. Basically, what we're doing on a successful HttpBasic authentication, exactly what we did with Postman. On each successful authentication, we're going to create a new token, and we're going to set it in the session for now. When we go into the security controller, now we can create a new get mapping like that. Authorize, let's call it public, and let me just copy that. So login action, HTTP session, like that. So instead of putting this here, we can say app constants dot out token name, and here we can say session dot get attribute app constants out token name. Basically, we set it to the session there, and after the filters have completed and we go to that route, only on that route we're going to receive our token as a response. Alright, so that's it pretty much for the first interceptor. Let's, I guess, create it now. So in the security configuration, we can go here and we can say final basic token authentication filter. So authentication filter equals new basic token authentication filter. Now we need authentication manager. We can just say this authentication manager bin, and it also needs the token service. So private final out token service, and let's pass it token service. Okay. Like that. And now we can say HTTP add filter authentication filter. Okay. Now let's create the second filter. Let's call that filter token authentication filter. Let's go to implement filter, Java X servlet, do filter. Alright, and we're going to require private final out token service. Alright, so here we need to check if the request has a header with the token name. Then we need to check if that token is present in the database, if it's valid. If it's not valid, remove it, and if it's valid, get the user and manually set our authentication. So first we need to cast our request to HTTP servlet request. So HTTP servlet request request equals servlet request cast. Now let's say final token, final string token equals request get header app constants authentication token name. Also filter chain do filter servlet request response, just not to forget. Now we need to check if the token is different than no, and inside we need to say AuthToken token equals this token service find by ID token, or I should rename this to token ID. Okay, so now here we can check if the token is no, then say unauthorized and stuff like that. But how we're going to do it is, if the token is no, then that token is just invalid and we're not going to throw any errors. We'll just let that to Spring handle it itself by saying unauthorized and relying on that exception handler that we created. So if authentication token is different than no, and now here inside we have to check if not this token service is token expired. So token. So oh no, sorry. If it is expired, we need to say this token service delete authentication token else, and now we can say username password authentication token authentication equals new username password authentication token. So what were the parameters for that? So object user, let me just download the sources for it to be a little bit easier. So we need a principal, credentials, and authorities. So principal, let's just extract them maybe here. So final user principal is going to be AuthToken get user, and final, yeah, I can just say principal get authorities like that. So those are going to be our authorities. So we're going to say principal. For authentication I'm going to say no, and then we're going to pass the authorities here. Now we have the authentication, and now we need to set it into the Spring security context. So security context, no, it's actually security context holder get context set authentication like that. And now we got the token, but we never updated it, so we need to update it, because it's if it doesn't update after 5 minutes, this is going to be expired, and basically we're going to delete it. So if everything is successful, we can say this token service update our authentication token. So I think that's it for that filter. Now let's put it in the security configuration. So let's say final token authentication filter. So token authentication filter equals new token, like that. And HTTP add filter, add before filter. First we need to pass our token filter, and then basically we need to specify which filter we need to add it before. So this is basic authentication filter.class. So now let's stop the application, let's run it again, and I'm going to show you how the filter chain looks like. And hopefully we're going to test and see that our token is now working, but we'll go into that. Okay, so there's our basic authentication filter, there's our basic token authentication filter just before it, and there's our token authentication filter, which is before them, before both of them. So that's the proper order that we need to keep in mind. Now let's go and test and see if this is working. So I'll open up the run terminal. So let's go to our front end and let's see how it goes. So let's go call without a token, and let's say unknown. You are unknown. Call again. Unlocked. You're not allowed. Okay. So let's say authorize. Username user. Password pass. So we're getting an error here because we didn't write our password correctly. Sorry, my bad. I just saw we're getting 405, which is method not allowed. I just saw that I have annotated this with get mapping, not post mapping. So let's restart again. Let's see. Okay, so let's give it another try. Okay, so now we got the token. Let's copy that and let's make a call, pasting that token to vault. You are vault. Let's make a call with the same token to admin. You are not allowed. Call again to unknown. You are not allowed. Okay. What if we call to unknown without pasting the token? You are unknown, so which is working great. Let's make actually one more test. So this is going to be our admin. So we got the admin token here, and let's make a call like that. Let's make that. Okay, so you are admin. So seems like it's working. What else we can test? I guess we can test if the tokens are properly, if they are expired, if this is handled properly. So let's get to authentication tokens. Let's choose a date that is like too old for that first one. So let me copy it. Let's make a call with that token to logged. You are logged. managed to find the issue here. It was that actually if we're doing it that way, I thought this was returning absolute value, but it was returning like -3 if the token is 3 minutes old, and like if it was more, it was returning like bigger sums here. So basically what we need to do here is, instead of doing that, we can say math apps of this, and this is like more, yeah. So in order to be expired, it needs to be, its absolute value needs to be more than 5 minutes. Okay, so let's again go with the first one here. Oh, sorry. Let's set it to like Sunday. Make a call. So you're not allowed. So now if we refresh the database, we should get only one token. Yeah. So this token is still valid, and now you can see that it's 21:59 and the time is 22:01. So actually, if I use that token now, so call walked, and if I refresh, we should get our current time, so 22:01:48, which is exactly. So that little update works in our token authentication filter here. And actually, I think that's it. The actual configuration was adding those two filters, and here in that security controller, having that one method that will return our session. We can also return the session directly by saying in that filter we can say, for example, no, not this one, sorry, this one. We can say response dot add header, and we can add it here, but for me it's more convenient to write it, to have it in the body, so that's why we're doing it that way. Okay, so thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and most of all, I hope that this helps you configure your Spring security. And if you're interested in similar tutorial videos, you can subscribe. I have more of those coming out. So thanks for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in the next video.